Almost 14 years into this channel, and no matter how hard I try, I'm still talking about Star Wars. Figures. The Star Wars Retro Collection has been one of the most confusing product lines Hasbro has brought out. Not in the sense that people didn't want them, but because Hasbro never had a clear direction with it. You can tell internally they didn't really know how to realize their Retro Collection ambitions. Initially started as a straight-up remake of the classic Kenner figures, much to orthodox anti-repro Star Wars collectors' dismay, Hasbro prioritized the Kenner remakes for the general retail shelves and put all the desirable exclusives that Kenner had not originally made behind virtual exclusivity paywalls like board games you had to track down. So the figures we always dreamed of that Kenner never made, Hasbro put a virtual price hike on them by stuffing them in these board games. And then just as quickly as they started going down the Kenner recreation path, they reversed course and started making figures nobody asked for from their TV shows on Disney+. I don't think when history shakes out, many people are going to care about the Retro Collection waves for Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I just don't think the interest is going to be there long term. Meanwhile, everybody was wondering where the absent mainstays were, like Chewbacca, C-3PO, and R2-D2, who ended up in an exclusive fan channel 6-pack that was almost impossible to acquire. So while pegs continued to fill up with unsold Retro Collection versions of Reva, the characters you really wanted were being put in 6-figure box sets that were only sold online, and the distribution was terrible. And aside from the Disney Plus television show characters, which very few people actually wanted, the desirable characters that Kenner never made were being trickled out, and in a nonsensical fashion. Nonsensical meaning they weren't making characters that we wanted that Kenner never made, they were making weird variations of things that we really didn't care about. Sure, we wanted Grand Moff Tarkin, that was a good move. But then immediately after that, it's Snowspeeder Luke Skywalker, and I don't recall anybody saying we really need a variation on Luke as a pilot. And if that wasn't undesirable enough, they turned around and beat themselves at their own game by putting a slightly dirty Stormtrooper in a Mandalorian-themed board game. Because everybody wants to track that one down for a huge premium, I'm sure. So by the time we got to Return of the Jedi, everybody was wondering what unproduced character from the Kenner years would be in this wave, and what board game would it be packed with? Turns out Hasbro didn't have the ambition, the budget, or the balls to re-release the one desirable vintage Star Wars board game, that Sarlacc pit game from Return of the Jedi. Instead, Hasbro took their Return of the Jedi themed unmade character and locked it in another 6-figure box set. This time, like Tarkin, it was one that everyone actually wanted, Mon Mothma. And unlike Tarkin, she didn't look quite as goofy or awkward. She came with Princess Leia's blaster when she should have come with one of those Return of the Jedi pointing sticks. If any figure did need to be packed with a bureaucratic pointer, it was definitely her. But they gave her a blaster anyway, which, whatever. And the 6-figure set she was put in, which was also hard to find and sold out easily, also set another precedent, because it included one of the last 17 original Kenner figures remade, the highly desirable and rare Yakface. Here was Hasbro, it seemed, finally ignoring the hand-wringing of the OCD orthodox Star Wars anti-repro collectors and saying, people want Yakface, and we're gonna give them Yakface, so go away. Unfortunately, a lot of the Yakfaces showed up without their ears molded on, so another win for Hasbro. I personally didn't care or need the new Yakface, but it was very interesting to see them start foraying into those very rare, expensive figures. I was hoping Hasbro had found its courage, finally. Unfortunately, the next box set proved me wrong. The most recent box set is the one collectors have understandably nicknamed the Fanmaker Ripoff Wave. Because inside this particular set, for the first time, there's only one Kenner recreation, and that's Walrus Man. Meanwhile, the rest of the figures are things Kenner never made that we would have really liked to have as kids. Let's get the best figure in the box out of the way right now. That is Dr. Evazan, Walrus Man's buddy in the Mos Eisley Cantina. He was never made in the original Kenner line, and Hasbro has done a really good job with him in the Retro Collection. They've even given him 2 blasters, which might seem like a head-scratcher at first, but there's actually a cool explanation for this. You see, the original Walrus Man from Kenner came with a Stormtrooper blaster, like so many figures back in that range. However, in the actual film, Walrus Man carries a very different, sort of retro sci-fi looking gun, and Dr. Evazan comes packed with that gun as well as the pistol he carries in the movie. Now, there's a lot of editing weirdness in that scene when Obi-Wan cuts the guy's arm off, and there's been a lot of debate as to whether or not it was supposed to be Walrus Man or Dr. Evazan. Did they both get killed? It's really hard to say whose gun was that. Well, based on behind-the-scenes photo evidence, we have confirmed that the gun that comes up into frame is actually Dr. Evazan's, and the arm that's cut off is Walrus Man's. So his gun is a totally different pistol that is then packed with the retro Dr. Evazan in case you want to give it to the retro collection Walrus Man instead of the Stormtrooper blaster that the original Kenner figure came with that also comes with the retro collection Walrus Man. I hope that makes sense. Next up, we have Yavin Luke Skywalker. This is a little bit of a head scratcher for me because Yavin Luke Skywalker does not have a Yavin ceremony Princess Leia to go with him, or even the slight variation that would make for a Yavin Han Solo. So you don't get that trio. But I guess it's good that we get the yellow jacket Luke Skywalker since we never got him in the original Kenner range. The problem is that they don't give him an original sculpt Kenner Luke Skywalker head from 1978-79. They don't even give him one that I think effectively looks like a sculpt they would have given figures in 1985 or 86 during the Power of the Force run. If this was a simulated 1986 continuation of the Power of the Force range, this Luke Skywalker would still look a little subpar. The face sculpt and hair are very strange, and he's also got these Gidunk platform boots on, which he definitely was not wearing in the film. And he is wearing tall black leather boots in the scene. It's just that the way Hasbro sculpted them makes it look like he's either wearing galoshes or really sizable lifts. He comes with Princess Leia's blaster, which is accurate to what he was carrying in the holster in the scene. That is correct, and you can verify that from behind-the-scenes photographs. And yes, he's yet another Kenner Luke Skywalker that doesn't come with a lightsaber and instead comes with the Yavin medal. But he doesn't wear the lightsaber in the Yavin ceremony scene on his belt, and I do find that strange. All in all, this Luke Skywalker is a bit underwhelming for me in this set, and he wouldn't have been my choice for one of these 6. However, I will say that he did turn out better than the Pro Customs version. However, he's nowhere near as good as many fan-made customs. Now, the reason I don't like this Luke's inclusion is because it takes away from another Luke Skywalker that should have been in this box set, and that's Luke Skywalker in Stormtrooper disguise, which, yes, would have been a 1985 Power of the Force Last 17 recreation, but they already did Yakface, and it would have made sense here because one of the figures they did include was finally their official version of Kenner Han Solo in Stormtrooper disguise, one we never got back in 1985. Hasbro's sculpting effort here with the Han Solo is really uneven. You've got a really good Stormtrooper body, and while some people say they don't like the helmet, I actually really do like the helmet because it reflects the Kenner Stormtrooper sculpt far closer than the Luke Skywalker Stormtrooper helmet from 1985. He comes with 2 weapons, which is accurate to the way he was portrayed in the Death Star on the way to the cell block. He comes with a brand new sculpt of the big rifle that the Stormtroopers would carry in the first Star Wars film, and he comes with the classic Kenner Stormtrooper blaster. In a nod to the original Kenner Han Solo, Hasbro also made his right arm, which holds his blaster, bent at the elbow. Now, I could go round and round with you guys about why I don't think that's the best idea, because when his helmet is on, he's supposed to really look like another Stormtrooper in the ranks, and if you put him on a shelf with all of your Kenner Stormtroopers, he's gonna stand out because that arm is turned. He would have been much more effective as a disguised rebel, or smuggler in this case, if he had been straight-armed. But I get why they wanted to add some variety to this and put a little bit of a salute to the original Han Solo figure into this sculpt. So I don't hate it, but I don't love it. The head sculpt on this Han Solo, though, is where this whole thing face plants. You're going to want to keep the helmet on him all the time because his head looks terrible. I can't decide if the original 1985 Luke Skywalker head sculpt looks better or worse than this Han Solo head sculpt. The only thing I can say is that the helmet fits really well and it's nice and snug, so when you have him in your display, he looks really decent. Except for the fact that he's way too tall. This Stormtrooper Han Solo, for some reason, Hasbro decided to make him a giant. He's almost as tall as Chewbacca. He towers over the standard Kenner Stormtrooper, and the Luke Skywalker Stormtrooper. Now, that would normally be great because Luke is too short for a Stormtrooper, but the Luke Skywalker Stormtrooper disguise figure is the same height as the basic Kenner Stormtrooper. And that makes sense because they weren't really looking at that kind of accuracy back then. But then to make Han Solo taller than the average Kenner Stormtrooper and look like he's some sort of gorilla is just strange, and it really doesn't work. The best thing I can say about the Han Solo Stormtrooper is that he has that helmet that is really accurate to the original Kenner Stormtrooper sculpt, and he has those additional accessories which look really good. My recommendation and what I'm going to be doing with my display is I'm going to have 2 of those helmets, and I'm going to put one on the Kenner original Luke Stormtrooper disguise Luke Skywalker, and I'm going to put the other helmet on my Stan Solo Han Solo and Stormtrooper disguise. I can be as nostalgic as everybody else, but I'm going to be straight up. The Kenner Stormtrooper helmet for Luke and Stormtrooper disguise, which was perfectly recreated by Stan Solo for his Han Solo and Stormtrooper disguise, is a very funky, standout, sad, sort of melted-looking face sculpt, or helmet sculpt. And if I have this option, I'm going to swap it out for display. However, I think the sad reason they didn't put a Luke Skywalker and Stormtrooper disguise in this 6-figure set is because they opted to go and add the Sandtrooper into the set, which Kenner also never made. So they didn't want 3 Stormtrooper figures in the same box. But I think the Sandtrooper could have been held over to a later wave because everybody's going to want to pick up those troops anyway. This Sandtrooper actually looks really decent if you've never had a custom Sandtrooper before. He does come with a really wonky new weapon that I don't like, and unlike Stormtrooper Han Solo, this time the left arm is bent at the elbow. I don't mind that so much on this Sandtrooper to give him a little bit of uniqueness, but what I'm not really that wild about are the ammo pouches on that shoulder. I don't think they work very well, and they really look ugly on profile. From my vantage point, when you compare this Sandtrooper to the Pro Custom Sandtrooper, I don't think there's a contest. I think Pro Customs walks away with the award. And yeah, I know the Pro Customs one doesn't have the ammo pouches on the shoulder, and I don't care. I think it actually looks better, and I think it looks more Kenner. Now, speaking of debatably Kenner, we come to the last figure in this box, and that is the Rebel Fleet Trooper from the original film. At a glance, many people are going to think, that looks great. But when you really stare at him for 3 seconds, something's off about this figure. At first you say, he's nice, basic, simple Kenner design. He even comes with the Bespin blaster, which is the Rebel blaster, and it is modeled after the blasters used in that original scene in Star Wars, as I talked about in my Star Wars Follies Blaster Masters from many years ago. That's the plus. I love the fact that the blaster is an original Kenner design. I wish they had molded it in blue-black like a 1979 figure would have had. But again, that's a nuance. 2 thumbs up for using the proper blaster from Kenner. However, it's all about the head sculpt where this thing falls apart. 1, he looks bald underneath the helmet, and that doesn't look great. And 2, he doesn't have a chin strap. Now, before you jump me and say, well, the Death Squad commander, aka Star Destroyer commander, he didn't have a chin strap, and this is clearly modeled after that. Well, by 1983-84, when they were coming out with the Rebel Commando and the B-Wing pilot and the A-Wing pilot, they were starting to put chin straps on those helmets. And this figure, while maybe trying to ride that line with 1978-79, the size of the helmet and the lack of depth of the helmet doesn't work without the chin strap because it makes him just look like a bald guy with like one of those 1990s haircuts for a kid named Connor. It just doesn't work. With Death Squad Commander, you don't miss the chin strap because the helmet is so big. But with this figure and the helmet being smaller and not having the chin strap and obviously no hair underneath the sculpt, it all looks very strange. Prior to this, we'd had the Pro Customs version of the Rebel Fleet Trooper, and he was really decent, but obviously based on the Death Squad Commander and kit bashing a few other Kenner styling cues. He did come with a great dark-colored Bespin Kenner blaster. Top marks for that choice. But barring the blaster accessory, the winner overall for the Rebel Fleet Trooper has to be the Stan Solo version, because it doesn't try to mimic the Death Squad Commander helmet proportions like the Pro Customs version. It makes it correct for the costume, far more correct than the Retro Collection achieves, and it has the crucial chin strap detail. The blaster accessory is correct even if it's a resculpt and a reimagining of that weapon. I prefer the Kenner one, but the Stan Solo figure holds his blaster really well, so I don't have any complaints. All in all, the retro collection from Hasbro continues to be a mixed bag and a frustrating proposition. You've got figures we've always wanted like Mon Mothma tied up in 6-figure sets, and you can't get them very easily because distribution is now so bad. And then you have to wait for re-releases that may or may not ever happen. With the Mon Mothma box, there were some restocks. I believe there's one coming soon. Some of the figures like Yakface indicate that Hasbro might have a fearlessness now about doing the entire Kenner run, but they're still holding back as Luke Skywalker in Stormtrooper disguise is evidence, and I can't quite account for that thinking. What I would like to see more of in this line is what they attempted in the Obi-Wan Kenobi range with the improved Darth Vader. I really wish they would take some of the legacy characters that went through the Kenner line like Chewbacca and Darth Vader and attempt a kind of refresh or a glow up on them. Those are interesting to me, while at the same time keeping the focus, like with this box set, on figures and characters that Kenner never even thought to make. This box set, as much of a mixed bag as it is where Hasbro's mindset needs to be with the retro collection. You want to split that difference between figures from Kenner that need to get recreated so collectors can have them again, and figures that Kenner never realized that would really entice us to keep purchasing these. That's where this is indicating they're going, but I don't have confidence that Hasbro's going to commit.